There's something haunting about an empty shopping mall at closing time. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting that familiar artificial glow across polished floors that should be filled with footsteps, but aren't. The storefronts stand like silent sentinels, their metal gates pulled down, hiding the familiar world of commerce behind cold barriers. You know this place should be alive with activity, but instead it exists in this strange in-between state, neither fully abandoned nor truly alive. This is what we call a liminal space, and chances are you've felt their pull without even knowing what to call it. The word liminal comes from the Latin limen, meaning threshold. These are the spaces that exist between destinations, between purposes, and between the familiar and the unknown. They're the waiting rooms of our world, but there's so much more than that. Think about the last time you were in an airport terminal late at night. The usual chaos of daytime travel has settled into an eerie calm. The departure boards still flicker with information, but the gates are mostly empty. A few scattered travellers sleep in uncomfortable chairs, their luggage clutched close like security blankets. The shops are closed, their bright displays now just silent advertisements for a world that feels temporarily paused. There's something both melancholic and magical about these moments, like you've stumbled into a secret version of a place you thought you knew. Liminal spaces have this unique ability to make us feel like we're existing outside of normal time. They're transitional by nature, designed to be passed through rather than inhabited. Yet when we find ourselves truly present in these spaces, when we stop rushing from point A to point B and actually observe them, something remarkable happens. We become aware of our own existence in a way that's both comforting and unsettling. Consider the suburban office park on a weekend. During the week, these buildings pulse with purpose meetings, deadlines, the steady rhythm of professional life. But on Saturday morning, they become something else entirely. The parking lots stretch empty under an overcast sky. The landscaping, usually just background noise to the workday hustle, suddenly becomes the main character. You can hear the hum of HVAC systems maintaining perfect climate control for empty spaces, a kind of mechanical meditation that usually gets drowned out by human activity. These spaces trigger something primal in us because they violate our expectations. Our brains are pattern recognition machines, constantly trying to make sense of our environment by comparing it to our past experiences. When a space that should be full of people is empty, or when a place designed for activity is still, it creates a kind of cognitive dissonance that's both uncomfortable and fascinating. The Backrooms Phenomenon has captured internet culture precisely because it taps into this psychological tension. The idea of endless yellow corridors with buzzing fluorescent lights and damp carpet strikes a chord because most of us have been in similar spaces. The forgotten corners of office buildings, the service corridors of shopping centres, the basement levels of parking garages. These are the spaces that exist for maintenance and functionality rather than human comfort, yet they're oddly familiar because they're part of the infrastructure of modern life. But liminal spaces aren't just modern phenomena. Humans have always been drawn to threshold places. Ancient cultures recognized the power of boundaries, the edge of the forest, the crossing of rivers, the entrance to caves. These were places where the ordinary world met something else, where normal rules might not apply. Our contemporary liminal spaces carry some of that same energy, but filtered through the lens of modern architecture and urban planning. There's a particular melancholy to spaces that were designed for human connection, but now exist in states of abandonment or minimal use. Think about a school hallway during summer break. The lockers stand in neat rows, their combination locks twisted to random numbers. Bulletin boards still display last semester's announcements, frozen in time like archaeological artifacts. The absence of students makes the space feel both larger and smaller simultaneously. Larger, because there's so much empty space. Smaller, because without its intended purpose, the hallway reveals itself as just a corridor between rooms. This is part of what makes liminal spaces so photographically compelling. They're inherently nostalgic, even when they're depicting places we've never been. There's something about their emptiness that invites us to project our own memories and experiences onto them. An empty playground at dusk doesn't just look lonely. It feels like childhood itself, with all its mixture of joy and melancholy, presence and absence. The lighting in liminal spaces plays a crucial role in their emotional impact. Fluorescent lights have a particular quality that feels both harsh and comforting, you know. They're the lighting of institutions, hospitals, schools, offices, spaces where we spend significant portions of our lives but don't necessarily choose to be. When these lights illuminate empty spaces, they create an atmosphere that's simultaneously sterile and intimate. The consistent, even illumination flattens shadows and creates a kind of temporal suspension where it could be any time of day or night. Consider the 24-hour laundromat. It's one of the most purely liminal spaces in our urban landscape. People come and go, but rarely stay longer than necessary. The machines run in cycles, creating a rhythmic soundtrack of washing and drying. The fluorescent lights never turn off, creating a pocket of perpetual day in the middle of the night. For the person doing laundry at 2 in the morning, surrounded by the gentle hum of machines and the warm smell of detergent, there's a kind of meditative quality to the experience. It's solitary but not lonely, purposeful but not rushed. The psychological appeal of liminal spaces might be related to our need for mental processing time. In our hyper-connected world, we're rarely truly alone with our thoughts. These threshold spaces provide a kind of mental breathing room. When you're walking through an empty parking garage or waiting in a deserted train station, you're not being bombarded with social stimuli or entertainment options. Your mind is free to wander, to process, to simply exist without agenda. There's also something appealing about the honesty of liminal spaces. They don't try to be anything other than what they are. A parking garage doesn't pretend to be beautiful, it's purely functional. But in that functionality, there's a kind of aesthetic purity. The concrete ramps, the painted lines, the numbered spaces. These elements create accidental compositions that can be, surprisingly moving. It's architecture stripped of pretense, reduced to its essential purpose. The temporary nature of our relationship with liminal spaces is, I think, part of their charm. We're not meant to stay in the airport terminal or the hotel corridor. We're just passing through, and there's something rather liberating about that transience. These spaces don't make demands on us the way our homes or workplaces do. We can exist in them without responsibility, without the weight of permanence. Urban exploration has revealed the hidden liminal spaces of our cities. The abandoned shopping malls slowly being reclaimed by nature, the empty office towers waiting for new tenants, the decommissioned factories standing like monuments to past industrial eras. These spaces have a particular poignancy because they tell stories of change and impermanence. They remind us that even the most solid-seeming structures are temporary, that what seems permanent is actually just paused. So, the rise of remote work has, created these new categories of liminal spaces. Think about the coffee shop that sort of doubles as a temporary office, or the co-working space with its deliberately flexible furniture. And then there's the hotel lobby, where digital nomads set up their temporary workstations. These spaces, they're designed to be neither home nor traditional office, but something in between, professional but casual, private but public, permanent but temporary. Weather actually plays a significant role in the atmosphere of liminal spaces. An empty shopping centre parking lot, for example, takes on entirely different qualities depending on whether it's bathed in harsh summer sun or covered in evening snow. Rain, it can make liminal spaces feel more enclosed and intimate, while fog can make them feel infinite and mysterious. The interplay between architectural space and natural elements, it creates these moments of unexpected beauty in places that really weren't designed to be beautiful. The sounds of liminal spaces are as important as their visual qualities. The echo of footsteps in an empty corridor, the distant hum of ventilation systems, the occasional ping of an elevator arriving at a floor where no one is waiting. These sounds create an acoustic landscape that's both familiar and, well, alien. They're the background noises of modern life, but when they're not competing with human activity, they become the foreground, creating an unintentional symphony of mechanical life. Perhaps what's most compelling about liminal spaces is how they make us aware of our own presence. In a busy restaurant or crowded street, we're part of the collective human experience. But in an empty hotel hallway at 3 a.m, we become acutely aware of ourselves as individuals moving through space. Our footsteps sound different, our breathing becomes audible, our shadow on the wall becomes a companion. There's something both existential and, comforting about this heightened self-awareness. The allure of liminal spaces ultimately speaks to something fundamental about the human experience. We're all in transition, all moving between states of being, all navigating the spaces between who we were and who we're becoming. These threshold places serve as external mirrors for our internal experiences of change, uncertainty, and possibility. They remind us that being in between isn't something to rush through. It's a state worth experiencing, worth contemplating, worth finding beauty in. In a world that's constantly pushing us toward productivity and destination, liminal spaces offer permission to simply exist in the present moment, even if that moment is defined by waiting, by transition, by the beautiful emptiness of spaces designed for human activity, but temporarily free of it. They're reminders that sometimes the most profound experiences happen not when we arrive, but while we're still on the way. Subscribe for more deep dives into internet culture and psychology. Like this video if this made you think differently about liminal spaces.